Hey everyone. Okay, so earlier today I got done watching Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, and it's a movie that I really like. I really do. But one thing that I have been thinking about for a very long time is how great it would be if they did a sort of, live action version. As good as the anime is, imagine if they did a live action version, that'd be pretty cool. So, what this video is essentially is me just discussing, hypothetically, who would play the roles in a live action version of Final Fantasy Advent Children. And of course this is purely hypothetical casting. But, it's just, I thought it'd be something fun to do. I mean, I know there are content creators who like to do that sort of thing, like a casting couch thing, like the Blockbuster Buster does it. So yeah, I just thought it'd be fun to this would be something fun to do. Like, I think, if you could pick one film that you could cast, I think this would be my pick, a live action version of Final Fantasy. So, to begin with, of course, we've got to decide who's going to play Cloud Strife. I mean, he is the main one in this, so of course this is the most important casting decision, really. And it's a decision that I've thought long and hard about, and I have chosen Patrick Swayze. Yeah, for me it has to be Patrick Swayze playing Cloud Strife. And of course, again, this is purely hypothetical. Of course, this couldn't happen because unfortunately Patrick's no longer with us. But if he was, yeah, Patrick Swayze would be my choice to play Cloud. I just think his acting style is very reminiscent. His persona on screen is very reminiscent of what Cloud Strife's persona is. And I just think Patrick Swayze would be a good choice to play that part, and of course he'd have no problem handling the physicality of the role, doing fight scenes. No big deal. Patrick Swayze, he could do that easy, so I think even more of a reason why he'd be a good choice for the role of Cloud. And then of course, next to Cloud we have the role of Tifa to cast, and of course, another important casting decision, because she is our lead female in this movie, our lead heroine, and she of course has an important role to play too. And again, this was another casting decision I had a good think about. And initially I was thinking about Liv Tyler, who played Arwen in Lord of the Rings, but recently, after seeing the Hobbit movies, I thought that Evangeline Lilly would be an even better decision. Yeah, so my pick to play Tifa would be Evangeline Lilly, because again, she can handle that physical role, physical aspect just fine, and also she's a really good actress, so she'd be able to handle, both the dramatic side of the role and the physical side of the role. So yeah, Evangeline Lilly would be my pick to play Tifa, and of course she looks good, so when we're she needs to be attractive in the same way that Cloud needs to be attractive. We've got this attractive, good-looking guy, and we need the actress playing Tifa to be good-looking, so she'd be a believable interest. Sorry to reduce it to, to reduce this just to physical appearance and looks, but we need, it's a movie, and that's the way it goes. So we need someone who looks good, so we could believe that Cloud would be interested in her, and we need a good-looking guy to believe, so we can believe that Tifa would be interested in him. So I think Patrick Swayze and Evangeline Lilly would be two good choices for those roles. And then after Evangeline Lilly, of course, we need to decide who would play Kadaj. Now Kadaj, of course, is next to Sephiroth, our lead villain in this movie. So again, another important casting decision. Now, the person who I have chosen, it's an inspired choice, so stay with me, please stay with me. But for Kadaj, because we need someone who's young, I was thinking Edward Furlong. Now, I know this is an inspired choice, and of course this is hypothetical casting, but yeah, I think Edward Furlong would be my choice. It's just genuinely what it comes down to for that, with that decision, is each time I've watched Advent Children and I've been looking at the character of Kadaj, I have just been seeing Edward Furlong as that role, as that, you know, I could just really see him in that role. So that's basically, essentially what that decision is based upon. So yeah, Edward Furlong as Kadaj. And then we have the role of Aerith. Of course, by the time Advent Children comes around, she's already died, of course, but she still has an important role to play in the movie. She hangs over the film like a goddamn shadow. She really does. So again, even though she hasn't got a particularly big role in the movie, she's got an important role. Now, you know, initially I was thinking Cate Blanchett, you know, because I thought the role of Aerith is quite similar to Galadriel in Lord of the Rings. But the thing about Cate Blanchett as Galadriel, her character is, there is a difference between Galadriel and Aerith. Like Galadriel, obviously she's this much older and wiser character, you know, she has this certain air about her, you know, this like air of authority, and you don't really get that with Aerith. She's, you know, she's not as intimidating. So I just thought, you know, and obviously Galadriel is a much older character, whereas Aerith has something of an innocence about her. So I thought Cate Blanchett, you know, wouldn't necessarily be the right choice. I thought for Aerith that Karen Gillan would be a good choice, you know, from Oculus. I thought she'd be a very good choice. Like, she's young, she has that innocence about her, but yeah, I thought she'd fit the role of Aerith very well. So yeah, I finally came to the decision of Karen Gillan to play Aerith rather than Cate Blanchett. And now, of course, we come to our buddy cops of the movie, Reno and Rude. And I couldn't think of a better buddy cop combination than Riggs and Murtaugh themselves. Yeah, I would cast Mel Gibson as Reno, and I'd cast Danny Glover as Rude. Honestly, it would be amazing. Again, similar thing to casting Edward Furlong. Every time I have watched Advent Children, when I've seen Reno and Rude together, I've just been thinking Riggs and Murtaugh. So with that in mind, I have to cast Mel Gibson and Danny Glover in those two roles. Simple as that. So that's Reno and Rude decided. And now we come, of course, to the roles of Yazoo and Los, Kadaj's two heavies. Now, this was something of a tough decision, particularly Yazoo, because Los, I had one choice in mind from the very get-go. For Los, I thought that Dolph Lundgren could play the part. I thought that role would suit him down to a T. And yeah, I really think Dolph Lundgren would be a good choice to play Los, you know, because obviously Los is the tough guy of the three, you know. He's the biggest, he's the strongest, you know. So I think Dolph Lundgren would fit that role very well. Now Yazoo, of course, He was something of an interesting one. I was initially thinking maybe Alex Pettyfer and of course Ryan Gosling and Dan Stevens, but I finally decided on Jamie Campbell Bower, you know, who was in Sweeney Todd, and he was in the last Twilight movie, and of course recently he was in that Mortal Instruments City of Bones. I just thought he would be a good choice. I thought he'd go very well alongside Edward Furlong, you know, in terms of that like cute, good-looking type, you know, but they have that dangerous, nasty streak to them. And I think it'd work very well because I think Kadaj and Yazoo should be the younger of the three, and of course Loz should be the oldest one. So I think that'd be a nice contrast. You know, you have this battle-hardened older guy in Dolph Lundgren, and then the two younger guys in Edward Furlong and Jamie Campbell Bower. But I think Jamie Campbell Bower would, you know, be able to handle himself when it comes to the physical stuff, you know. So in terms of the fight scenes, he'd be able to go the distance, much like Edward Furlong, I think, you know, because of course when he has the big fight with Cloud at the end, you know, it'd be important that he'd be able to handle himself. And if you're going up against someone like Patrick Swayze, you know, you couldn't get a better physical actor than Patrick Swayze. You know, he needs to be able to go the distance. So I think there'd be safe casting decisions in that respect. So in addition to Yazoo and Loz, we then come to our remaining heroes, the first of which is Vincent Valentine. And of course, he doesn't necessarily have the biggest role in this movie, but it's still an important one, Vincent, because of course there's that scene at the Lost City when he saves Cloud's life, you know, so he does play an important role in this. And I was thinking Kurt Russell. Oh, I love Kurt Russell, so I was wanting to find a way to fit him into this where I could, and this was the perfect opportunity, I thought, because initially I was thinking whether he could play Cloud, but I thought Patrick Swayze, of course, fitted the bill more for that character. But yeah, I genuinely think Kurt Russell could play a good Vincent. Now, of course, Vincent is a very, he is a tough guy, and he's quite a silent character, you know, but he can, again, another guy who can handle himself. You don't want to mess with him. And I was thinking the way Kurt Russell could play this is, you know, if he played it the same way as he played Snake Plissken in Escape from New York, I think if he played the role in that way, that'd really work. So yeah, that's one of the reasons. That's my main reason for casting Kurt Russell as Vincent Valentine. I think you can draw a good comparison. There's a lot of similarities between Snake Plissken and Vincent Valentine, so I think casting Kurt Russell as Vincent would work really well. And of course, Kurt Russell, he has no problem either handling himself when it comes to physical roles, so there'd be no problem there. So in addition to Vincent, there is also the role of Barrett Wallace to cast. Now, this actually was a role that I didn't really need to think about when it came to casting it at all. From the get-go, I had one person in mind, and one person only. I think this was actually the first person who I decided when it came to the casting this. And to play Barrett Wallace, I was thinking Ving Rhames. You know, from Mission Impossible, Ving Rhames would be awesome as Barrett. He really would be. You know, you want a really likable guy, you know, and again, a tough guy. You wouldn't want to mess with him. I think Ving Rhames would be a good choice there. You know, if he's, again, playing a similar kind of role to Luther in Mission Impossible, I think that'd work really well. I genuinely think Ving Rhames would be a good choice to play Barrett. So that's Barrett decided. And then of course we come to Sid Highwind, of course, the Han Solo of the movie. Now, again, this didn't require much thought either. I want Jason Statham to play this role. I think he'd be really good. Jason Statham would be really good as Sid Highwind. You know, again, really cool guy. You know, he can handle himself physically. Yeah, why wouldn't you want him as part of your team to save the world? You know, and why wouldn't you want? You know, it's an action movie. You couldn't ask for a much better modern action star than Jason Statham. You know, so I would be only too pleased to have him in this movie as Sid Highwind. Yeah, again, you know, that was a role that I casted in my mind pretty quickly. You know, I never really wanted anyone else to play Sid Highwind. It was Jason Statham for that role pretty much from the very get-go. Then, of course, we come to another one of our female roles in this movie of Yuffie. You know, our Xena warrior princess of the movie. Again, this is another important role, and we need an actress who can handle herself physically. So I was thinking Jennifer Lawrence. You know, after what she's done in the Hunger Games, I think she'd be a really good choice to play Yuffie. I think she's got the look, the way she looks in the Hunger Games. I think that look, if you take that look and apply that here, I think that'd work really well. Yeah, and I think that'd be a pretty good decision. And you know, if you wanted a name in your movie, you know, someone popular in your movie, you know, you couldn't ask for a more popular actress at the minute than Jennifer Lawrence. So that'd be a good decision, I think. And then, yeah, Kate Sith and Red 13, or Nanaki the Red Lion, those two characters, because of course in this movie them two go hand in hand, don't they? Of course, even in a live action movie they'd probably have to be CGI'd anyway. You know, they'd need voice actors, motion capture, whatever. However they decided to do it. So I was thinking of just using the same voice actors who did it in the English dub of the original movie. So that'd be Greg Ellis to voice Kate Sith and Liam O'Brien to voice Red 13. It's just, I thought that'd work. That'd work fine. You know, they did a good job in the movie. Why not bring them back for this? So that's those two characters decided. Now we come to, of course, Marlene and Denzel, and of course another two roles which are very important in the movie. So for Marlene, this was an interesting one. I was thinking a young Danielle Harris, you know, from like Halloween 4. I thought she'd be a really good choice to play Marlene. Yeah, that's a decision I'd be pretty happy with, and I think if you look at the way she looked back then, in 1988, around that time, I think she'd pretty much fit the bill for Marlene in this movie. And the sort of character she played in like Halloween 4, it's quite, I think the personality wise you can draw some similarities to the character in Final Fantasy. So yeah, that's my decision there, Danielle Harris to play Marlene. And of course Denzel, I only had one actor in mind. From the very get-go. I never thought of anyone else playing the part, really, but Elijah Wood, young Elijah Wood to play Denzel, you know, from like Forever Young time, from like around 1992, so when he was about 10, 11 years old. Yeah, like, again, I think his character in Forever Young, you can take that and you can draw some similarities personality-wise with Denzel, and I think Elijah Wood, the way Elijah Wood looked in that movie, again, take that look, pretty much fits the bill for Denzel. So yeah, Elijah Wood to play Denzel. I think that'd be a good decision, and of course, Elijah Wood is genuinely really talented. You know, he's an actor who's always had that natural ability. So I think he'd be a pretty safe bet to cast in this movie. You know, he'd do a good job. So that's Denzel. And yet another important character is the girl who befriends Denzel in the movie. You know, she loses a brother to the geostigma disease and then obviously befriends Denzel after that. And I was thinking, young actress Joy King, you know, who was in The Conjuring and also she was in the Fargo TV series. I think she'd be a really good choice to play that role. I think, you know, like, if there's something about, and she's another genuinely good actress who's got that natural ability, so I think she'd be a good choice to play that role. I had considered her actually to play Marlene, but I thought she'd be more suited to this role. Yeah, so Joy King to play the girl who befriends Marlene and Denzel. And of course, she's there at the end, isn't she, when they go to the church and to welcome Cloud back. I always joke when Cloud does a Gandalf the White and comes back from, I have returned to you now at the turn of the tide. Yeah, so Cloud the White, yeah, Cloud the Grey has died, Cloud the White's come back. So yeah, that's that role decided. So Joy King to play the girl who befriends Denzel and Marlene. So following that, oh yeah, another small role. You know, when we hear the various voice messages that have been left on Cloud's phone, one of them is from his friend Reeve. And I was just thinking again, that'd be a similar thing to Kate Sith and Red 13, you know, just bring the original voice actor back from the original movie. So that'd be Jameson Price to come back and voice Reeve. It's just those roles, you know, there's no reason to really change them. They worked fine in the original movie. You know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know, and they'd just be in the same capacity as voice actors, you know, so why not keep them the same? You know, that's been the main reason for doing this hypothetical casting, you know, because obviously voice actors won't necessarily fit the bill in a live action movie, so, you know, hence a lot of different casting decisions being made. So yeah, another role that we would need casting is Cloud's friend Zack. Now, of course, we see Zack in Cloud's visions when he sees Aerith, because of course Zack has died too. But I was thinking, initially, I thought Sean Bean. But I decided to recast Sean Bean in a different role, which I'll get to after this. I decided eventually to cast Pierce Brosnan as Zack. I thought Pierce Brosnan would be a very interesting choice to play Zack, because he's got that. Because Zack is a very cool character. You know, he's kind of like. Would it be fair to say he's kind of like the person that Cloud aspires to be, you know? And you couldn't get a much cooler guy than Pierce Brosnan. So I think Pierce Brosnan would fit the role of Zack very well. And what I decided to do eventually with Sean Bean, because I like Sean Bean, I genuinely do, I decided to cast him as Seng. you know, one of Rufus Shinra's men, because of course you have Reno and Rude to be played by Mel Gibson and Danny Glover respectively, and you have Seng and Elena to be played by Sean Bean. And then when it comes to Elena, I decided on Olivia Thirlby, you know, played Anderson in Dread. I thought she'd fit that role of Elena quite well. So yeah, Sean Bean and Olivia Thirlby to play Seng and Elena. And then, of course, I think that's pretty much everyone covered. Of course, Rufus Shinra. Again, I had one actor in mind from the very get-go who I would like to play Rufus Shinra. I would really like Patrick Wilson to play Rufus Shinra. I think he would be a really, really good decision. A casting choice for Rufus Shinra. I love Patrick Wilson, and I just think he'd fit the part really well. I think it'd suit him, I think. So yeah, Patrick Wilson to play Rufus Shinra. And finally, we've mentioned every character, I think, except the big bad of the movie. Of course, we've mentioned Kadaj, but we need to mention Sephiroth. We need to talk about Sephiroth, because of course, yes, Kadaj is essentially the main villain, but of course, the real villain of the piece is Sephiroth. Like, Kadaj, he's the warm-up act, isn't he? He really is. And of course, Sephiroth is the main event. And you need someone who would really, you know, pose a threat. You'd need someone who you'd look at and think, yeah, he could kill Cloud. Yeah, this is a guy, we don't want him to come back, you know. This is, you know, he's bad news. You mess with him, you die. And I couldn't think of a better decision than Liam Neeson. Liam Neeson would have to play Sephiroth. Honestly, he, you know, ever since Taken, he's established a reputation of, you know, you mess with Liam Neeson, he'd kill you in a heartbeat. You mess with Liam Neeson, you die. So yeah, I genuinely think Liam Neeson would be a good choice to play Sephiroth. Yeah. And again, Liam Neeson could easily handle the physical aspect of that role, and of course he has that he can pull off that intimidation aspect of Sephiroth. You know, he can be really cold and intimidating when he wants to be. Liam Neeson can, and he can be really dark. So yeah. I couldn't think of a better choice to play Sephiroth than Liam Neeson. So that is pretty... And of course, I think, you know, if you look at Liam Neeson and put him against Patrick Swayze, as good as Patrick Swayze is, you would feel a threat to Patrick Swayze, you know? Like, you'd look at Liam Neeson and you think, yeah, he could kill Patrick Swayze. Yeah, so... there is a chance that Patrick Swayze isn't going to get out of this alive, so I think that'd really work. So that's pretty much the casting decisions completed. But one thing I would like to touch on before bringing this to a close is the look of the characters in the movie, because of course in the original movie each character has a very distinctive look, as is, you know, it's anime, of course they do. But the thing is, of course, as you guys don't need me to tell you that obviously a character's look in an anime cartoon obviously won't necessarily transfer too well into a live action performance. In a lot of cases it can, but you know, when it comes to doing live action versions, sometimes there's a need for change. And you know, it's something that's worth going into. Like, I think, like in the case of Cloud with Patrick Swayze, I would change Cloud's look. I wouldn't keep his original look. I would go for, because it's Patrick Swayze, I'd base the character's look around the way Patrick Swayze looked, in Roadhouse. I think that'd work for this movie. And for Tifa, for Evangeline Lilly, if you based her, if you look at the way Evangeline Lilly looked in Lost, like in season 6 of Lost, I think her look in that would actually pretty closely match Tifa's look, so there wouldn't be as much change in relation to Tifa. In relation to Kadaj and Edward Furlong, I would, in relation to the bad guys of the movie, I would drift away from the silver hair, because I don't know how well that it translates onto live action. Obviously it works really effectively in the anime, but I don't know how well it would work in this. The look for Edward Furlong in the movie, for Kadaj, I was going to base on, the way he looks in The Crow, when he played the Crow in Wicked Prayer. So the long brown hair, that's what I'd go for in this, as opposed to the long silver hair. That'd be the biggest change I'd make in relation to Kadaj. Obviously he'd still have that youthful athletic appearance to him. That'd be fine. I wouldn't want to change that. In relation to Aerith, I thought the way Karen Gillan looks in Oculus, that actually pretty closely resembles Aerith. So I don't think there'd be much change in that respect, in respect of Aerith, in terms of the appearance. I think we could keep that pretty close. In relation to Reno and Rude, I was thinking of making considerable changes here. I was just gonna basically go with the way Mel Gibson and Danny Glover look as Riggs and Murtaugh. Now, when I look at Reno and Rude in Final Fantasy Advent Children, I get the feeling that they're not as good as they used to be. They've kind of lost their edge. They're a bit older than they were. It's a couple of years after the events of the original game, so they're a bit older. They may have lost a step or two, and of course, it's kind of like they've met, at the end when they fight Loz and Yazoo, it's kind of like they've met the match here. So I was thinking, when it comes to Mel Gibson and Danny Glover, and like which sort of movie to take them from, it wouldn't be really good, logical to take them, Riggs and Murtaugh, from Lethal Weapon or Lethal Weapon 2, because they were in the prime in those two movies. Well, like Riggs in Lethal Weapon 2 was a killing machine. I was thinking of taking the Riggs and Murtaugh from Lethal Weapon 3 to have them as Reno and Rude in this movie. So Mel Gibson and Danny Glover from Lethal Weapon 3, and how they looked and were in that movie to play Reno and Rude in the live action version. So obviously considerable difference, of course. Like Rude would no longer be white. Of course, he'd be black. Not that matters, of course. And of course, instead of being completely bald, he'd have like Danny Glover's hair and mustache. And of course, Reno, instead of having his red long hair, he'd have Mel Gibson's lion mane from Lethal Weapon 3. But again, I think that'd still work. But again, like in relation to Reno's hair, I don't know if the red hair would translate as well into live action. So that's Reno and Rude. Of course, Yazoo had based his appearance on Jamie Campbell Bower's appearance in Sweeney Todd. So again, like long brown hair to complement Edward Furlong. In relation to Loz, I wouldn't be that that strict on laws. I'd be happy for Dolph Lundgren just to show up as he is, kind of look the way he does in Expendables, something like that. I'd be happy with that. Vincent Valentine, Kurt Russell. I'd be happy for Kurt Russell to look pretty much the same as he does in Escape from New York. He's going to act like Snake Plissken. May as well look like Snake Plissken. Minus, of course, the eye patch. So that'd be pretty much it for Kurt Russell. Just his normal look, as he pretty much like he looks in Escape from New York. Barrett Wallace, Ving Rhames, he could just come as he is, look the way he looks in the Mission Impossible movies. I think that'd work here just fine. Sid Highwind, Jason Statham, he can just come as he is, look with his usual look. I know Sid Highwind in the original movie, he isn't bald, but Jason Statham makes bald look good, so that'd work for him. Jason Statham, you just come as you are, man. That's absolutely fine. Yeah, Jennifer Lawrence as Yuffie, if she just maybe takes the look that she has for the Hunger Games movies and adopts that here, I think that'd work just fine. I think her look in the Hunger Games is pretty closely match the look of Yuffie in Final Fantasy, so that'd work. In relation to Denzel, like I say, if Elijah Wood looked as he did in Forever Young, that'd work fine. And if Danielle Harris looked the way she did in Halloween 4 to play Marlene, that'd be fine. Joy King, the way she looked in The Conjuring would be fine, I think, for her role in this. I think that'd work quite well. Pierce Brosnan playing Zack, I think maybe if he took his look from GoldenEye, something like that, I think that'd work fine. Sean Bean as Seng, I think maybe if he looked like he did in one of the Sharp movies, so Sharp Sword for example, he looked pretty cool in that. If he used that here, I think that'd fit well. Elena, Olivia Thirlby, if she looked great in Dread. I think that her look in that movie, with like the blonde hair, I think if she brought that to this movie to play Elena, I think that'd work well. Of course, Patrick Wilson as Rufus Shinra. I think if he took his look, his usual look like he looks in Insidious 2, The Conjuring, I think that'd work perfectly fine for Rufus Shinra. Just trying to make sure I don't leave anyone else out here. And then, of course, in relation to Liam Neeson, I think for him to play Sephiroth, we'd have to take modern Liam Neeson, older Liam Neeson as he is now, because I think as he's got older, ever since Taken, he has really developed that tough guy, intimidating character, that intimidation persona, whereas when he was younger he didn't really have that. So we'd have to take an older Liam Neeson, from like Taken 2, Non-Stop, Walk Among the Tombstones, though that Liam Neeson. But of course we'd need to adjust his appearance accordingly, so like longer hair. Of course we're gonna avoid the silver hair, so if he just kept his normal brown hair and grew that out, that'd be fine. But yeah, that's the Liam Neeson we want, the older Liam Neeson. So I think that'd work for Sephiroth. I appreciate that the silver hair for Sephiroth and Kadaj and Loz and Yazoo, it is their trademark, it is, but it comes down to that I don't know how well it'd transfer into live action. So that's just the reason, but I think the brown hair would work just as well. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. So they're my casting decisions, and that's my idea on how the characters should look. I certainly think that the costumes would work fine. I don't think there'd be any need to change the costumes, so they'd be fine. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. Again, this was just a fun video I wanted to do. I hope you guys have enjoyed it, and please feel free to comment your thoughts for possible casting decisions and your thoughts on the decisions I've made, and maybe what you liked and what you didn't like, what you guys would do differently. But yes, thank you guys for watching, and thanks for bearing with me, and I'll see you all next time. Thank you everyone.